Hey everybody, Sean Tierney here from the Automation Blog and School. And this week on the Automation Podcast, I have Malachi from Elite Automation on to talk to us about his company and some cool applications they've been doing with AMRs. Malachi, thank you for coming on the Automation Podcast. Very excited to hear all about Elite Automation and what you guys do over there. And I got to say, I love the name. But before we get into that, could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? Because I know you have a very unique journey through automation and how you got to founding this great company.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me, Sean. Appreciate it very much. Yeah, so for myself, I actually have a pretty interesting story. Whenever I got started in this industry, I didn't even really know what direction I was going to go. I literally walked into a community college and was like, "Hey, what do you guys have?" They started listing off the different programs that they had, and they got to automation. I said, "Ooh, what's that one?" And then they said something about robots. I said, "That's the one." Right. So I fairly quickly made that decision as soon as they mentioned something about robots. Um, and then I highly lucked into one of my professors went to college with an individual that ended up being a friend after college, and they started their own system integration company.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So they made the introduction for myself to them, which was Midwest Motion, and I pretty immediately, I think it was my first semester of college, started working with them while going to school full time. Um, and I stuck it out at that company for about 8 years. Um, Majority of my career there, I was a controls engineer. I'd say for like maybe the first like 6 years, and then I transitioned a little bit more into like the project management side of things, while still continuing to do like controls engineering, both on PLC, robot, HMI, vision systems, things like that. Um, like I said, got more deeply involved with project management, and then started my last couple years with them. Started to get more involved in the pre-sales, more of the business related items, a little bit more of the decision making on what direction we're going to go with the company, helping them with starting new initiatives and whatnot. Um, and I think it was roughly 2 years before I quit there, I decided that, uh, you know what, I'm going to give all that I got. I'm going to stop everything that I'm doing on the side. Because at the time I was doing a lot with like passive income, and I actually had a fitness YouTube channel that grew to like 1,000 something subscribers.
Nice.
Yeah, we had like 10,000 followers on Instagram. Uh, and I literally just shut it all off one day. I said, you know what, we're going to shut all this down and we're going to go 110% into automation and see where I can take this company that I'm currently with. And so I'd always kind of been had the mentality that, I would work with the company for, 20, 30, 40 years, my entirety of my life, and just, grow my career internally within a company. And then I took that year, and I kind of realized over the course of that year, like the company was never going to get to what I had envisioned for a company. Um, and really was never going to provide the opportunity that I had seen. And really the big thing is like the company culture, right? I wanted a certain type of company culture. And also is why I named Elite Automation Elite Automation. It's just because I want us to be the best, right? I want us to be the best place to work for. I want us to have the best engineers. I just want the overall experience whenever somebody's involved with Elite Automation, that they get to have an experience like that. And so for my last year with that company, I basically knew the entire time it was just a matter of time before I had kind of branched off and did my own thing. I said, let's just take this time to observe, educate myself some more, and that's what I did. I stuck it out with them for one more year. I gave them a project notice on the last project I was working with them, and started Elite.
I think company culture is so important. And I think that's why Americans change jobs so often. I mean, you get in, everything's brand new, and then after 3 to 5 years, you feel like you're stuck. And so it's funny, but that's how life is here in America. I mean, people change jobs on, on average 3 to 5 years. Not to say like my last job was 11 years, and I loved the company I worked with, absolutely loved it. I just hated driving. I spent more time driving than I did working, and I didn't go to college to become a truck driver or a cabbie. I wanted to program and teach people how to program. So it's um it's totally understandable, and that's one of the things that drew me to the name Elite Automation. I'm like, yes, these guys are using. They're saying right up front, we want to be really, really good. Not just okay automation. It's elite automation. So, can you tell us a little bit about what your company focuses on today? What kind of services and products you offer?
Sure. So our core business model is capital projects, and majority of our capital projects involve some type of robotic arm within them. Um, we do some specialty machines, but majority of it has a robotic arm. And then we're covering applications from various different industries, anything from uh, food processing, packaging, to palletizing, to robotic welding. And as we've grown as a company, we've hired individuals that can cover those different resources that are needed. So, like for example, myself, I have a very strong background in material handling, vision systems, dispense applications, a lot more of the material handling, palletizing type of applications. Uh, and so whenever we brought on more individuals into our company, one of the focuses was to bring on individuals to handle things that I could not. And so that was the things that we did initially. We brought in some robotic weld engineers that both handled the robotic programming and then as well as the fixture design and manufacturing. So we've built that team side of our team out. It's actually probably one of our more successful sides of our team. And then we brought on more individuals for the material handling side as well, and a lot in like packaging and a little bit more of like the special systems. And then as far as services go, we are offering kind of uh, just about any service that goes into a robotic capital project. We offer that as a service.
Excellent. I know material handling is huge, especially in the PLC world and the motion control world and robotics. A lot of OEMs will make machines that, punch out the products, whether it's injection molding or stamping or whatever. But then that product has to get from cell one to cell two or process one to process two. And that's where material handling comes in, especially packaging products, packaging and palletizing is such huge, and those are usually the most interesting things you see at the you see at the trade shows is the packagers where you get all these little robot arms picking up different products and trying to pack them in a box. So, what kind of vendors do you work with? I'm sure you work with them all, but what are some of the prime vendors you work with on the automation on that side of business?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of your major vendors. We probably do 40% of our work is Fanuc and Allen Bradley,
Okay. Yep.
um, which I think is fairly common for the U.S. side.
Yeah.
Um, and then we also have engineers who are capable of handling the Kukas, the Oskawas, ABB, a little bit some of the other brands, also like Omron, Mitsubishi PLCs, Siemens PLCs.
Hmm.
Um, we have a very broad skill set in the different platforms, vision systems, primarily Keyence, Cognex, a little bit of LMI. Um, use like Banner quite a bit, especially for like we really like their safety controller. That's kind of one of our
Oh yeah.
go-to items.
Yeah, we just had them on recently.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I've been that Banner safety controller. I've been using it for like 5 years now. It's kind of the go-to solution if we don't have an Allen Bradley Guardmaster PLC
Yep.
or Guard Logix PLC, then that's kind of what we default to.
They really have a great line. Just, I think And it should have aired by the time this podcast airs, but we had them on for just their pilot lights. So we had them on for Snap Single previously. Snap Single's very cool, but then we had them on just to cover their indicators. They have just so many cool things just in the indicator line. It was just
Yeah.
amazing, amazing company.
Mhm.
We've had a lot of amazing companies on, but um, yeah, their safety PLC just looks. I should have them back on to talk about that because it looks really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very user friendly, and it for us, we really like to have the flexibility whenever we engineer our systems. One of the things we try to do is like over engineer. So we're using like CIP safe, we're using programmable safety controllers, and almost never using like safety relays alone. It has to be a really small project for us to use safety relays alone, because for us, spending the extra $300, $500, whatever it may be, it's worth spending that money on a project, even when there's smaller projects.
Mhm.
These are long-term investments companies are making, and I think it makes sense for the longevity of the piece of equipment.
Now, in addition to like the robotic arms, pick and pack and all that, I'm assuming you're doing conveyor controls and you got VFDs on these things as well.
Yep, yep, absolutely. And some systems may be like servo only systems, so maybe they don't have a
Oh, all right.
robotic arm.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Servos can be used. I've just they're used all the time in material handling, to precisely place products in a certain spot.
right.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you guys? So as you guys are looking at 2022, what are some of the big things you're looking to? I mean, some of the new products you're excited about that you guys are using, or maybe some of the new applications you're getting into that you didn't do
Sure.
before.
Sure. Let me go over to this one first, because this is kind of
Sure.
one of the key things that we're pushing right now, which is AMR Technologies. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of AMRs, but I'll just take you to. So here's a few of the different AMRs that are out on the market.
Hmm.
AMRs to us have been such a huge value to the industry and to our customers, because it was a technology that was not really readily available a few years ago. And even a product like Mir, which is one of the most common AMRs that we utilize, just their software upgrades alone have made them things much more reliable, much more robust. You don't have near as many like weird buggy things that you had in the beginning. So, you know, over the past few years, that technology has gotten much stronger, and I think it's only going to continue to grow stronger. And it's in a space where your only option at one point in time was AGVs. Um, you're very, very limited, and those have a lot more infrastructure cost to them
Hmm.
to be able to implement them, and a lot more time that it takes to implement an AGV type system.
So for those who might be listening and can't see the images, right? How would you the AVG versus the AMR? How would you contrast the two different products?
So an AGV is almost always using some type of track strip, which would be it may be a magnetic strip on the ground. It could be a paint strip that the AGV follows. Whereas an AMR is autonomously guided, so it's utilizing sensors like laser scanners, vision systems, lidar systems, and it kind of just depends on what AMR you have, on what technologies they use. Um, but that's the major difference when it comes to an AGV. How I mentioned before, you have to put some type of strip down. Well,
Sure.
since you're laying some type of strip, you have to pay a contractor to come in and lay the strip down, especially if it's a magnetic strip and you have to saw out concrete. That's a pretty hefty undertaking.
Mm.
And so when you engineer that thing, you have to engineer it appropriately, and it has to be correct. Whereas with an AMR, you have a lot more leeway. You have the ability to, say, hey, we're going to use this AMR for press 5 and 6, and the next week, if you want to change your mind and say, never mind, we want to use it for 10 and 11, it's literally like a day or two change to migrate the system to another location. Or if you decide that, hey, this AMR is only being utilized for 50% of its capacity, that you transition it to operating 2 separate lines instead of maybe just 1 line if there's the cycle time to do so.
So much easier to change because you don't have to do a physically guided strip in the floor. But probably a little bit
Exactly.
more expensive because it needs to have lidar or is it primarily lidar and photo eyes that's
So
laser?
yeah, so yeah, so Mir is utilizing laser scanners
Okay.
and vision. So they're using laser scanners to basically make a map. They have laser scanners on their 2 adjacent corners
Hmm.
uh, to detect like walls and legs of things, and um, also the encoders in its wheels. So it's using all these different things and combining the
Nice.
data together to create that map, and then also to localize itself as it travels through the map.
So for the audio only audience, you may want to check out the video version of the podcast because Malachi has some great videos that he's playing in the background as we're talking, and it really gives you a sense of how these, the collision avoidance. They have a robot running around a trade show, and people are purposely stepping in the way to stop it from to
Mhm.
stop it moving.
Yeah. And one thing that's cool about this one you can see here on this screen, it's from Evidence,
Okay.
is the maker of this AMR. But you're actually one thing you're seeing here is it's a follow me feature. So you can press a button and it can follow whatever the subject is. And then also I went from the front to the back of it and it just started driving in reverse, which is a very unique function. So that's another thing because these technologies are new enough. A lot of them have key features that are definitely different. So like with Mir AMR, it has to turn around in order to follow you, and it actually doesn't have the follow me function built into it as of now.
I didn't
So
realize, but that is you standing right there in the video. So
yep,
a little cameo. So it followed you forward. A lot of drones are putting that technology into them. So if you go for a run, you can have an airborne drone follow you and video your run. And I think that's cool. That's making its way down to the manufacturing and shop floor with AMRs. That's very cool.
yeah, absolutely. And also like with that one you've seen there, it's also an outdoor rated unit.
Oh, all right. Yep.
So like that's another big thing. So it's like a lot of these things. It kind of depends on uh, what the use case is. So the other AMR that you just seen was, the follow me function can be utilized where if you don't even want to teach it, right? You don't even want to teach it targets and positions. You just want to say, hey, follow me. I want to put stuff on you and I want to continue to walk and I want you to follow me wherever I go. Uh, so it's just a different way of working. Shall that manufacturer want to prefer working that way, or if they have a process where it makes more sense to work in that way?
I could definitely see that being useful in a big yard where you have a lot of heavy stuff and you can't carry it all in one trip.
Absolutely. So this is kind of just a built-in top module for lifting up pallets. Just showing a demonstration of that working. This
Very
one,
cool. This is an MR model.
yep,
Yep.
here, yep.
So it's
And
going
this top,
underneath the pallet and it's going to pick it up. Yeah, all right. So
yep,
as the top of the unit raises
yep,
up and lifts the pallet off of the stand, and now it can take it wherever it needs to go.
yep. Yeah, and so this top module right here for this particular one, it's like a purchase item, uh, and they come without it. So it's one of the things like that's our job is to like spec that out
Hmm.
and determine what the actual application is in need for.
It also has for the audio audience lots of lights around it. So this autonomous vehicle has all kinds of safety lights on it, blinking lights to let you know what it's doing. It's moving, it's stopping, it's reversing. So very well thought through. Personal safety is apparently a very big thing with these.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and another thing's nice too about those lights that you mentioned,
Hmm.
they're also like status indicators. So it's letting you know like, hey, am I trying to map to go to a location? Am I currently on a route to a location? And you can actually program them in to do what you want. So like if you wanted to say going to press 1, if you wanted that to be red, you could have it be red. If you wanted to press 2 to be yellow, you could have it be yellow and just program in whatever colors you want the indicators to be based on whatever job it's doing.
Now, how do you typically communicate from your control system to one of these AMRs? Is there like an open standard for communications? I mean, do they talk Profinet and Ethernet IP, or are you doing something else?
So they're definitely different across the different platforms, but
Okay.
one of the common ways is a REST API.
Okay.
So that's one of the most common ways. There's devices called a WISE module, which it's a wireless module that takes the signal from the AMR and converts it into a digital signal.
Oh,
So
all
just
right.
discrete signals, gives you four ins and four outs. And they also have Modbus TCP.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that's good. I think everybody knows how to
Yeah,
use that.
yeah, right. It's kind of the go-to common platform. Like if you really need to just communicate directly with a PLC, and it's kind of the only way to really communicate with a PLC, other than doing some type of workaround with the REST API.
Yeah, I don't know that a lot of PLC programmers, HMI programmers, have delved into Rust very much.
Yeah, I
Not
don't.
that
Yeah.
not that they couldn't figure it out. I'm sure
Hmm.
they could, but you hear Modbus TCP and you think, well, most products have that built in, so it might be
Hmm.
the lowest common denominator for them.
Absolutely.
Now,
Y-
I mean, you could probably wouldn't even have to do integration to your PLC though, because this you program this to go from wherever it needs to go, and the PLC would know if it's there, right? You could do just
mhm.
contacts. It looks like I don't know on that video. I don't know if it actually touches the machine it's receiving it from, but you could have it
Uh,
push up against it, right, and close the contact so you know it's ready to unload.
yeah, yeah. So like as of right now, like the way this one's communicating is that this one's using a WISE module.
Okay.
And so whenever the mirror gets into position, it communicates to its WISE module. That's actually communicating directly with a FANUC robot.
Okay.
There's a FANUC robot at the top side loading. And also the FANUC robot's in control of this black conveyor here.
Hmm.
And so we basically tell the robot, hey, we're here. And then the robot says, okay, I'm sending it. And then we wait for that send signal to go off, and then we transport and do the same thing here. Now that second white conveyor you see there,
Yep.
it is controlled solely by the mirror. So the mirror is directly sending its run signal to the VFD, and that's how it's running.
Yeah. So digital, you can do a lot with digital. Hey, give me the part, and then, hey, I just dropped the part on your conveyor. Move it along.
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, I definitely see we see a lot more of this too as people, as well. People are having such a hard time finding people to fill jobs that this is what happens when they can't find people to actually fill a position. That's when they start utilizing automation more. Um, so yeah, let's go through these quick facts. This is interesting.
Yeah, sure. So the biggest one that I point out on this one here, like Mir, they have I think four or five different units now. I think it's five. But the Mir 1350 is one of their newer ones that's hitting the market, and so we definitely like to advertise this one because obviously it's a 1350 kg payload, which is close to 2,700 pounds.
Mm,
So that opens up a ton of more capabilities. Like that's a big thing with like AMRs, collaborative robots. Like a lot of your limitations are like payloads or like speeds or those type of things. So anytime one of these vendors comes out with a new product that has more payload in it, it opens up our ability as systems integrators to be able to provide uh, that new solution to our customers.
yeah, I wonder if the runtime is affected by the payload. I mean, is that runtime of almost 10 hours? Is that based on the medium payload or the max
Max
payload?
payload, max
Oh,
payload.
well, that gets
Yeah,
definitely gets you through a shift for sure. Nine
yeah.
hours, 9 and 50 minutes. Wow.
Hmm. Yeah, and if you look at like the charge rate on this, the charge rate, I mean, it's fairly quick charge rate too. So it's like somewhere in the
Oh, yeah, I just
presentation.
saw it. Yeah, 10-minute charging gives you 2 hours and 40 minutes of runtime. That's good.
Yeah, yeah, that's just quick 10 minutes. So like if you go on lunch break or something like that, or just your 10-15 minute breaks if for your operators go on break, you can go and just park and be ready to go for another couple hours.
Yeah, I mean, you probably could run 24/7 because mandatory breaks, 15 minutes
Yeah.
every couple hours and a half hour minimum lunch. This thing could be
Hmm.
charging when the people ain't around working on the machine. So that's awesome. That's important. That's an important fact.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely like kind of like one of the concerns whenever we go to sell one of these items is how do we know that it's going to have enough charge life, uh, to sustain our operation.
And that's continuous runtime. If it goes somewhere and stops for a while, I'm assuming it's not using the full
Yeah.
that it would be if it's driving around.
Yeah.
So
Correct. Yeah, and a lot of applications, it's doing a good period of sit time.
yeah, which would make
Yeah.
sense because the product's not always going to be where you want it.
Yep. Yeah. Another really cool thing is a lot of them have a dashboard. So
Hmm.
this is actually an example of Mir's dashboard here, and essentially you can program this thing like an HMI. So
Oh,
uh, yeah, yeah, really nice. So if you want to have more operator interaction with it, you can have like the operator actually command where this thing goes, um, and so you don't even really have to uh, have another automated system behind it. If you just have somebody that's running back and forth from, you know, the molding area to the finished goods area, back and forth all day, you can command the AMR to say, "Hey, I got parts that are done. Come pick them up." So you basically have uh, the equivalent of somebody you can call on the radio and say, "Hey, come pick up my parts."
that yeah, I definitely can see that because not everything is a well-oiled machine. Not everything is automated to the point where you're going to have 10 parts per minute. There are a lot of processes where things happen and the cycle time is not always identical. So and especially if there's a lot of manual intervention into the process. So that's a great feature.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I find different manufacturers want to use these products differently.
Mm.
So there's the Modbus protocol, and then the REST API. What the one thing that do wish that they would do more of on the vendor side of things is to have more protocols. Like in my mind, Mir being as big of a brand as they are, they should almost support like Profibus and Ethernet IP and some at least your major protocols.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of the vendors who are coming on the podcast support Modbus TCP, Ethernet IP, and Profinet, and some even do EtherCAT. But you're starting to see that one product, whether it's RTA, IFM, Banner, the ClickX, signal conditioners, they all are starting to support those three major protocols because they're all Ethernet, and I think that's a good trend. So it'd be nice to see Mura do that too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and another big thing is like the mirror is kind of set up to where it's a little bit more uh, IT related. So they're expecting like that it's going to be ran from like a website or something. I
Mm.
think that was kind of like their goal and their strategy, but I think the actual use case is, your plant level individuals are the ones utilizing these machines.
So what you're showing here is two options. One is strict. If there's something in the way, it doesn't do anything. It stops.
Hmm.
And the other one is if there's something in the way, it'll try to go around it within some certain parameters.
Yep. Yep, and so that's a programmable function. So like if you needed to keep a strict follow line, maybe there's human aisle walkways on either side of the mirror, and you said, hey, I need you to be in this strict path. You can program it to have the strict path or have more of a autonomous path where it can re-navigate which way it travels.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then within that, you can do things such as program like forbidden zones. If it has to cross a walkway, you can make it go across the walkway much slower.
Hmm.
So that way, if it does have more human interaction in that area, that it has enough time to react. This right here is an example of a mirror tending a robotic cell, so a palletizing robotic cell, and the mirror handling all the offload and bringing of the fresh pallets to the robotic system. And so I think this is also a huge area where you're going to see a lot more AMR technologies, and you're also going to see these utilized in many different ways. Some of them maybe, the pallet just gets picked up taken to a stretch wrapper, maybe the same AMR or another AMR takes it back to a like finished goods area. And an easy way to implement would be you just have one fork truck driver that stays like in one common area and is handling all the products the mirror is bringing it,
Mm.
versus having a ton of fork trucks all over your plant driving around picking up these things. You can have less people on fork trucks just doing the final storage, or you can go to a higher, more advanced level system where the AMR handles the complete storage.
Yeah, I could definitely see the AMRs bring in somebody who's loading a truck. They bring the pallets over to him, and then he has to, because that can be tricky loading a truck. He actually uses his forklift to do the final truck loading, but the AMRs come over and at least queue up the pallets for him, so he doesn't have to run all the way to the machine or to each of the machines. Um, yeah, very
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, and another big one we'll see is customers using storage racks. Right.
Hmm.
So then you have to go to a fork. If you're going to use an AMR still, then you have to go to a fork truck style AMR, um, which is not always the best use case, and they can be much more expensive as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of automated warehouses have those, and they're guided. They're guided forklifts, but they'll take in a pallet, and based on the barcode or whatever that's on it, they'll put it in a particular bin. But getting it to that forklift typically in the past was done by a human, and of course now the AMR could take it anywhere, across the plant floor. That
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
excellent. That was very excellent. That's and I don't know that we've had anybody on to talk about AMR, so I appreciate you digging into that. That seems like it's a big part of your business these days. And if anybody is interested, you can of course see eliteautomationusa.com, and you can see the phone number there. They can give you guys a buzz and talk to you about that. Um, was there anything else you wanted to cover today?
Yeah, yeah. I can kind of briefly just go through some of the other things that
Oh
we
yeah,
we
please.
cover. So, like I mentioned, we're doing a lot of weld fixture design and fabrication. So, there's just an example of some of the fixtures that we've done in the past. Design of the fixture. This is the leak detection unit.
So describe the weld fixture for the audio audience. I mean, it looks pretty straightforward just looking at it here in the drawings. But for those people who are driving the car, when you say you get a lot into welding fixtures, explain what you mean to the audio audience.
Yeah, so like a good example would be like, let's say for instance, a automobile seat.
Hmm.
There's metal structures within that seat, and generally you have a bunch of stamped components, and these stamped components are placed inside of one of these weld fixtures on different features that match the components. So one of our objectives is to design this fixture to fit all the different components, so that way they have a nice nest. And then there's actuators that clamp down on the uh, uh, on the different components to hold them in position while the robotic welding arm welds the component. And then one of our other jobs is to make sure that you know all of our clamps and everything like that are out of the way of the weld,
Mm.
and that it doesn't cause any interference with the robot head or the robot tool.
Now, do these welding fixtures, are they typically loaded manually or automatically?
A lot of them are loaded manually,
Yeah.
and I think that's also I've been noticing that from the different weld customers that we're visiting.
Hmm.
I think there's a ton of opportunity to take that human weld process, or the human loading process, and making it a robotic loaded process.
Yeah, I think, it's a lot of these systems, the parts, like you think about a seat, some of those parts can be kind of awkward, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
different ones. So,
Hmm.
you can definitely see where they would have a person there today, but maybe in the future have
Hmm.
a complicated, I shouldn't say complicated, but an advanced robot that can load it all up.
Yeah, and some of the things, one of the ideas that we've pitched in the past is to have more centralized units. Like, let's say, for instance, we have a customer and they have 6 lines that produce the same part, and they have 6 lines just for capacity's sake.
Hmm.
You can have an off. like a satellite robotic cell that is taking your stamped parts or whatever the raw material is, and all that robotic cell is doing is processing the parts to become nested. So they come in like your bins, and maybe you do some type of bin picking operation, and then you place the components on a nested fixture. That way, you can have like an AMR take it over to whatever system is calling for those parts, saying, these parts are low or empty or whatever. And that other robotic cell just constantly maybe has quite a few tool changers on it to handle the different components. But then your investment can be much lower, because if that one robotic cell is tending 6 different weld cells, your ROI is much quicker on that.
Yeah, you can see it preloading all those cells, and then they go to whatever machine is available.
Yep.
Makes sense.
This right here is just a leak detection unit. So manual leak detection using a dunk tank. The fabricated unit. These are casting grippers for a robotic arm.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're doing the design of all these different features to lock into the component, to lock all its degrees of freedom, and then also doing the manufacturing of those items. Here's a unit with it on its cylinder.
So not just the programming of the robot itself, but the tools that grip the parts that it has to pick up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. This is a fairly intricate one. So this tooling has to rotate like 360. There's level compensation to pick these to pick these injection molded pieces out of the mold.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a three-step process. So we have to load in a bearing. We have to overmold on top of that bearing, and then we have to pick the overmolded part out and take it to another injection molding press to overmold it for a second time.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, that one was pretty intricate, and it's using vision and lasers to ensure that the mold open position is in the proper open position, to ensure like the robot doesn't crash into the die.
Mm.
And this is kind of just a small special purpose machine. Some of the conveyor stuff we've designed in the past. There's some of the outputs of those same conveyors. And then we're even doing stuff like this where it's like a lower cost machine tending operation. So this would have a chute that has, hundreds of these parts loaded into it.
Mm-hmm.
So an operator can load this and then walk away for 2 hours while this mechanical unit just sits there and loads the CNC machine.
I see. Yep.
And it's all being done by cylinders and a PLC. I think total project cost of this was like under $30,000.
Which just helps the operator multitask, so he doesn't have to sit there for the every 30 seconds and loading a new part. This is eliminating that, so he can load up a tray or a I don't know what you call it, but he can load up all the parts and then go and do something else while this thing processes them all.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those places that are CNC machine centers, they might have like 5 machines that are running, and so something like that would make it so that instead of having 5 operators tend the 5 machines, you can have 1 or 2 operators tend the 5 machines.
Yeah, I did that for a month once. Fed a machine parts. It's boring. Almost the worst job I ever had.
Really. One last one that's kind of important to us as a company, and something that we plan to do extremely well at some point in time, and that's remote services. So like already internally, we're testing these things against our own projects, and some projects where the customers do want us to just add this feature, but it's remote support, basically utilizing many different technologies to be able to get remote access to the systems. So I'll kind of take you just to more of like the hardware side of things. So we're using industrial PCs, various different brands, and the industrial PC gives us the ability to remote into that PC and handle devices that are not on the network. So maybe it's a USB programmable device. So we have a PC that's able to do that. Or also if we have issues with our VPN or something like that, this is a redundancy. So it gives us a second means to be able to log into the machine and potentially do some programming and some troubleshooting for our customers. And then using VPNs, such as the ones you see here from Phoenix Contact, Allen Bradley, Stride Links. All these VPNs are very good units, and they basically give you the ability to program and troubleshoot a system as if you were there and plugged into the network.
Yeah, we've had Phoenix on and we've had Allen Bradley on talking about their products. They have very different feature sets, so I definitely recommend the audience compare them because everybody has their strengths, and there's features I like about both. I wish they all had all the same features, but yeah, definitely check them out. And the Siemens one you had on the last page too, they have some great stuff, especially their edge devices. Their new edge devices are definitely worth a look.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and another thing too is like how advanced do you want to get? If you're looking for just remote connectivity, like most of these, all these units will give you that or that basic remote connectability function. But like as you know, like some companies want to go enterprise level and they want every one of their machines to be mapped out the exact same way and having like the same security protocols and whatnot. Another thing that we add to these too is we almost always use a hardwired Ethernet connection and a cellular connection. So that way it gives us the ability, another redundancy, right? If we have issues accessing through the wired connection, that we can use the cellular connection on top of it. And then so the next big part about this, with this remote connectivity is that, our projects are stored by date code. And somebody can call into our company and say, I have, project number 2022-08-15. And one of our engineers can pull up the data from that project, and it'll have everything in it from the PLC code, robot code, any remote access credentials that may need to be needed to log in remotely to that machine. All our notes and everything like that are within that same project folder. So that way the engineer can be more up to speed on what the actual application is and what it's going to take to troubleshoot it.
Yeah, that's important. I've seen some catastrophes, avoidable catastrophes, when somebody decides they're leaving the company, and then the documentation system in the company was poor, and then they're scrambling, trying to find files, trying to get in touch with the old employee, and they're busy at the new place, and so that's important. It can't be underlooked. Yeah.
Huge. That was like actually one of the reasons why I started Elite. It was like there were so many times where like I was looking for files and it'd be like, oh, it's on Billy Joe's computer, and you're like, how's that doing anybody any good? This is a big multi-million-dollar project, and the files are on somebody's computer. Like, so yeah, file management's huge. We all of our file management's done through the cloud. That way we have connectivity everywhere. We try to incorporate the same redundancies that we put on our systems into our own business practices, and making sure that we have access in multiple different ways.
Absolutely. So important.
Good deal. And we have more presentations and whatnot for some of the different things we have. Some of them are that I'm not showing here. It's just because we don't have approval to show like on the internet. Some things we have approval to show during customer meetings.
Sure.
So we got like different security levels for the different things we're allowed to show. Anybody can reach out and get with us to if they want any particular type of presentation that we may have. We have palletizing, we have machine tending, the mechanical. items, simulations. That's another big part of what we've been doing. We've been doing a lot of hybrid, like remote programming, and along with the on-site programming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we definitely have your eliteautomationusa.com, and the phone number's on the screen. I'm not going to read that out. If you're driving, you wouldn't be able to write it down anyways. But yeah, feel free to reach out to them, and if any of this is of interest to you, if you have an application coming up and you need something like this, if you're listening to the audio only edition, you may want to come back and watch the video edition. Malachi has a lot of really cool videos in these presentations, so I definitely want to encourage you guys to reach out and get in contact. I appreciated it because I haven't really done anything with AMRs, haven't talked to anybody about AMRs, so I appreciate you not only giving us kind of a little bit of your backstory and telling us all about Elite Automation, but also kind of giving us an intro to AMRs as well. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. Thank you, Sean. Let's do it again sometime.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I want to thank Malachi for coming on the show and telling us all about Elite Automation, as well as about some of those AMR products that look really cool. With that said, if you did enjoy this episode, please consider giving us a like and a sub. And if you want to follow me or support me, you can do so over at automation.locals.com. You'll also find all of my PLC HMI and SCADA courses at theautomationschool.com. With that, I want to wish you all a very safe, happy, and healthy week. And until next time, my friends, peace.